Did they know that they were being recorded and somebody committed perjury?
Yeah, we've lost some talk.
Hi and welcome to Flawsome Talk. I'm Tashti Flaw, journalist, Hollywood truth teller, and your voice of reason in a town built on delusion. Okay, somebody here is lying and somebody committed perjury. This is explosive and we will get into that in this episode. Also, Jamie Heath, Baldoni's business partner at the Wayfarer, admitted to recording a phone call he had with Sony. That phone call was about that statement that Ryan Reynolds wrote to the Wayfarer party for them to take all the blame for everything that went wrong with the promotion of It Ends With Us. And that phone call is taped. Let's talk about it. We also need to talk more about those signal messages because now more depositions have been unsealed. And even though Blake's attorney is really trying to make this suspicious, it's not working. This afternoon, there is a hearing. There's a hearing about the Stephanie Jones case. Remember, there are two separate cases here. It is Blake Lively versus Baldoni and the Wayfarer parties. And there's a separate case, which is Stephanie Jones versus Jennifer Abel and Jennifer Abel versus Stephanie Jones. And that's the case there is a hearing in because Blake Lively is trying to get evidence from that case, which has nothing to do with her case, and use it in her case. And there's a big disagreement about that. And I think now Stephanie Jones wants to reopen discovery. And according to some sources, someone else is paying for Stephanie Jones' legal fees. Have a wild guess who that might be. Also, there is a lot of rage online now with the pattern of Blake and Ryan's behavior, especially against Black people, and how Jamie Heath's unsealed deposition now is bringing back memories to that plantation wedding that Blake and Ryan had. And Daily Mail actually did publish a quite interesting article. It said, the last thing I want to do is kiss this woman. Devastating new court documents lay bare nuclear clash in 161 million ego trip between Justin and Blake. So this entire story basically goes through all the explosive new evidence in Justin Baldoni's motion for summary judgments that I spoke about all last week and the week before. I think it's like almost 2 weeks ago now. But anyways, finally the media is picking this up and actually doing a bigger story on it. Anyways, let's just go to this recorded phone call first, because this could be so devastating for Sony and for Blake and for Ryan and everyone involved. Because as I said last week, Sony filed a letter to the judge and said, "Hi judge, don't unseal any of the evidence from us yet. We need some more time here." So I think that this might be one of the reasons why, because they know there is a recording out there. And this recording is about that letter that Ryan Reynolds wrote for the Wayfarer parties to sign so that they could take all the responsibilities for his messed up PR campaign. We all know that Ryan Reynolds' company, Maximum Effort, was responsible or took responsibility for the promotion of It Ends With Us, and it was a disaster. And Blake Lively got so much backlash because she promoted this movie the wrong way. And Blake and Ryan, of course, wanted to blame someone else for this, and they blamed Justin Baldoni and the Wayfarer parties. And then they wrote a letter for them on August 12th, just 3 days after the premiere of the movie, for them to release. It was basically saying that it's our responsibility and we have so many regrets and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so Jamie Heath admitted in his deposition that he recorded a conversation with Sony about this. He says, "Danny then called me after the call with Patrick." I don't know who Patrick is. "He may have been on the call as Patrick as well, Danny. I just don't recall. He called me shortly after the call and was going to read to us a letter that the Reynolds, I guess I can refer to both of them as the Reynolds, had written, and I could not believe what was happening. So I recorded it because I wanted it documented." And then he explains further that not only documented, he was going to dictate to me a letter and I didn't have a hard copy of it. So I wanted to record it so that I could actually write it down and have it. Makes sense. So he has a good excuse for doing this recording. I don't know if he did it legally or not. I don't know where Jamie Heath was at this time. As you know, in some states, you actually have to inform the other party that you're recording them. I'm sure he didn't do that here. So what could come from this? As you know, Sony has already been deposed and they're probably been asked about this. But did they know that they were being recorded when they answered those questions? How did they respond to the questions surrounding this statement and how they were involved in getting Baldoni and the Wayfarer party to sign this ridiculous statement that was written by Ryan and Blake? Did they say something different than what we will hear in that recording? Because we will hear the recording, it will be released. Did they say anything about Blake and Ryan in that conversation? Did they say anything bad about Blake and Ryan in that conversation? Saying, you know, they pressured us to do this. Please, please, please just do as she said. She's being a nightmare. Did they say anything like that? Or did they say to the Wayfarer parties, you have to sign this or we will sanction you in this way or that way, or something bad will come from this? We don't know, but we will find out. At least now we know why Sony was freaking out before the weekend. They definitely do not want us to hear this recording. Okay, so another interesting story here. As I said, somebody is lying. So as you know, Melissa Nathan and her company TAG was hired by the Wayfarer parties and Baldoni to deal with this crisis, to deal with basically all the negative publicity surrounding Justin Baldoni at the time. So she had an employee called Catherine Case. And Catherine Case has now been deposed by Stephanie Jones, because as I said in the beginning of this episode, Stephanie Jones is suing Jennifer Abel and Jennifer Abel is suing Stephanie Jones, and Stephanie Jones says that Jennifer Abel is responsible for a website that was created to smear her. And she thinks that Melissa Nathan was involved in that website, and under oath, Catherine Case, who used to work for Melissa, said that Melissa told her what to write on that website. She was assigned to write a copy for the website. And now Melissa Nathan's deposition has been unsealed, and she is saying that Katie Case is lying. She never asked her to write anything for the website to smear Stephanie Jones. Here's a little piece where Stephanie Jones' attorney is asking her, and if Katie Case testified that you did, that would be false under oath testimony. Is that your testimony? Completely false, says Melissa Nathan. Okay, is Katie Case a huge liar? Apparently so, yes. One of the two is lying here. Either is Katie Case or is Melissa Nathan. I don't know, but the thing here is this case has really nothing to do with Blake Lively. This is a case about defaming Stephanie Jones. But Blake Lively wants to use this to discredit Melissa Nathan and say, hey, look what she did here, over there with that website. That's why I also believe that she did something similar to me. And now Blake Lively's team wants to use the deposition from Katie Case in her case. And Baldoni's team has said, no, you can't do that. And they're saying that she didn't respond to their subpoena while they never actually filed a subpoena on her. So now, as I spoke about before, Stephanie Jones and Blake Lively are collaborating here. And yesterday I watched a video that Perez Hilton posted on YouTube, where he says that he has a source, a very reliable source, that has told him that Stephanie Jones is not paying for her own attorney. That makes so much sense to me. Why would she team up with Blake like this when she knows the risk is huge? As I said before, because Jennifer Abel, who she's suing, was her employee at the time all of this happened with Blake, she could be responsible for paying all her legal fees against Blake Lively. And she could also be responsible for paying the damages, the part that Jennifer Abel would be owing Blake Lively after this. It's so complicated, you guys. I hope it makes sense. While trying to explain this in a simple way, it's not in Stephanie Jones' interest really anymore that Blake Lively wins. But if she's not paying for her own legal fees, that changes everything. Who could be paying for her legal bills? Have a wild guess. So anyway, so the Wayfarer parties told the judge here, hey, this case has nothing to do with ours. The only reason Blake wants a part of this is because she wants to smear Melissa Nathan and use that against her in this case. So who knows what's going to happen? I think the hearing today is going to solve some of this. So we will probably know more about this tomorrow. But when are we going to find out who's lying here? I don't know. And of course, we have to talk more about those signal messages because this is what Blake Lively, this is like her smoking gun, which is basically smoke and mirrors because there's nothing there. And now we've seen so many unsealed depositions from everyone in the Wayfarer party. And Blake Lively's attorneys are desperately trying to get them to admit that they deleted some things. But the fact here is, which is such a good point, why wouldn't they use auto-delete until the point where Blake Lively sued them? So when you get sued, you automatically have to preserve communication. That's the law. But how would they guess that she was going to sue them before she actually did? Maybe the Wayfarer parties could have guessed that she would go after them for SH or something like that. But how could they guess that she would go after them for a smear campaign or retaliation when all they knew was that she was planting stories about them? How would they then think, oh, let's save all this communication so we can give it to her in case she sues us down the line? Why would anyone do that? Another funny thing here is that Jennifer Abel's deposition, there's part of it that is unsealed here, where Blake's attorney is asking her when she started using signals, and she's saying that, well, initially Stephanie Jones asked me to download Signal. She used it frequently. And we were working together with a client who primarily used Signal. And then after that client terminated us, I had deactivated the app because I didn't use it for anything else. So it's so funny that she's bringing Stephanie Jones, who is suing her, saying that she was the one who asked her to use Signal auto-delete. Anyway, the way Blake's attorney keeps asking them about this just makes it trying to make them look like criminals just because they use the Signal app. It's quite entertaining because he's not getting anything. And they're just saying, I don't know what was in those messages. I don't remember. I don't recall, which is the way to say it legally. Don't say you don't remember. Just say, I don't recall. And why would you recall text messages that you sent a year ago in a group chat? But you have to remember, this is all that Blake Lively has, which is invisible evidence. That's why she's desperately trying to twist these signal messages into evidence exploitation. And that's why she tried to sanction them. And this is a response to that sanction. As you know, she filed so many sanctions. She wants to punish people all the time because she's not getting it her way. And I wanted to talk about this article written by Eumonia Dyke at Medium. Thank you, Mari, for sending me this. It's a very well-researched article. I will leave a link below if you're interested in reading the whole thing. So she's going through this pattern of Blake and Ryan and how some of the things that are happening right now in this lawsuit brings back old memories of how they have treated Black people throughout their lives and careers. And she's talking about this birth video. As you know, Blake Lively demands to watch that entire video of Jamie Heath and his wife. And keep in mind, Jamie Heath is Black. So she's saying, let that sink in. A white woman who at this point has already been caught in multiple lies and revealed that her allegations of SH are nothing more than a smokescreen to hide her and her husband's hostile takeover of It Ends With Us, wants to strip Jamie Heath of his constitutional right to defend himself against said allegations. So remember, Blake actually asked the judge to take away Jamie Heath's right to defend himself because she said she hadn't received the entire video of his wife giving birth. One more thing, Lively has also accused Heath of having the audacity to brace yourself, make eye contact. while she was nursing or pumping, something she regularly and openly did on set. That's right, the accusation is not that he ever ogled her breast. She even stated that she didn't think he was trying to coop a look. No, the offense is that when she invited him and several other members of production into her trailer for a work meeting, he directed his eyes at hers. She told him to face the wall. The article also points out their wedding on a plantation and also Ryan's previous feuds with so many black actors, amongst them The Rock, Wesley Snipes, Denzel Washington. And we know after their wedding, they came out and apologized for it. They knew that it was tone deaf. To me, it's just so absurd that they didn't realize that. When you see the pictures from Boone Hall Plantation, it's pretty obvious what those cabins are. And they were putting tables outside for people to enjoy themselves, to indulge in expensive champagne and nice food in front of those cabins. I mean, how can you not realize that is just insane? Anyways, I found this quite interesting article that E! News did back then. Back then, maybe they were actually a little critical thinkers over there. And they said, a look at Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' deeply controversial wedding. Blake and Ryan's 2012 day was filled with vintage touches, a celebrity performance, and a couture gown, but there's a reason they considered it to be a giant effing mistake. So why this is coming back now could actually be really important, because these things could actually come up in trial. Since Blake is suing the Wayfarer party because they hurt her reputation, these things can be brought back in and say, hey, you married on a plantation. Don't you think that ruined your reputation? And you know the backlash from that. And you actually came out and apologized for it. So talking about that in front of a jury could really hurt Blake. And going back to this E! News article, they're quoted saying, it's something we'll always be deeply and unreservedly sorry for. Reynolds is quoted here, and it continues, it's impossible to reconcile. What we saw at the time was a wedding venue on Pinterest. What we saw after was a place built upon devastating tragedy. They didn't do any research on this place. They just saw it on Pinterest and was like, yeah, let's get married there. I wonder what those cabins are for. Maybe we can make it into like a little beauty salon where Blake can get her makeup done before the wedding. So after this, they do what every celebrity do. They just give some money away to some causes. I think some of that money was given to NAACP. And that's also the reason why this year Blake became one of Time 100's most influential people. Remember that? That was so insane. And this was money they gave back in, I think, 2017, which was like $200,000. It's nothing for them. But she got honored for it. How sick is that? Reynolds is quoted more saying here that representation and diversity need to be completely immersive, like it needs to be embedded at the root of storytelling. And that's in both marketing and Hollywood. When you add perspective and insight that isn't your own, you grow. I wonder how many black directors or producers he's worked with. We know he hasn't even worked with one female director because there was a story on that the other day. So diversity and inclusion, I don't know, Ryan Reynolds. And then he says, we talk about our bias, blindness, and our mistakes. Really? I doubt it. And he says, we look back and see so many mistakes which have led us to deeply examine who we are and who we want to become. They've led us to a huge avenue of education. Well, it doesn't seem that they learned anything, especially looking back now and how they're treating Jamie Heath and his wife. Also in this article, there's another little story here that caught my attention. It has nothing to do with this, but it has to do with how Ryan and Blake met, which is also a lie. So they're saying here, about a year after Green Lantern had come and gone and all that stuff, we were both single. Reynolds recalled during a 2016 appearance on Entertainment Weekly. We went on a double date. She was on a date with another guy and I was on a date with another girl. That was the most awkward date for the respective parties because we were just fireworks coming across. So he's saying that they did not notice this firework coming across while they were shooting Green Lantern and promoting it together in all those cozy interviews that they did together. They didn't notice that spark. They just noticed it a year later when they were on a date with other people. Really, we all know that, of course, Ryan Reynolds was married to Scarlett Johansson while he was shooting Green Lantern, so he couldn't admit that they actually fell for each other during the shoot of Green Lantern, which we all know that they did. So they're pretending they didn't notice there was a spark. Anyways, that's it from you guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and please keep sending me tips and subscribe if you haven't, and check if you've been unsubscribed as well, because it does happen a lot, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of Flawsome Talk, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Yeah, we flawsome talk.